My dear friends, today we celebrate the 31st Sunday in Ordinary Time, Year B. The readings revolve around the theme of the Commandments of God. In the first reading, taken from the book of Deuteronomy, Yahweh gives the Israelites the commandment that would become known to Jews as the Shema, an invitation to write the commandments on their hearts. Moses wants to teach the Israelites what Yahweh has given him to teach, but he also wants to persuade them to obey these teachings. In return for their faithful obedience to the commandments which Yahweh has given, Moses promises the Israelites prosperity, a land flowing with milk and honey. This promise has its roots in the covenant that Yahweh made with Abraham many years earlier. The words in the Shema, "The Lord is our God, the Lord alone," emphasize Yahweh's singularity, that Yahweh is the one and only God, and all other gods are false gods, devoid of power or meaning. Other nations might have their gods, but Israel is bound by the covenant duty to worship only Yahweh. Yahweh belongs to Israel and not to others. The first affirmation of the Shema is a profound statement of monotheism, which means to have one God. The words, "You shall love the Lord your God," highlights the essential obligation that grows out of the truth that God is one. It requires the Israelites to love Yahweh with all that they are and all that they have. God does not want blind obedience and dutiful slavery. God wants a loving relationship with the people. How are we to love God? With all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. The Israelites thought of the person holistically and would never have divided the person into body and soul as the Greeks were to do later. We could therefore interpret this phrase in this way: we should love the Lord our God with everything that God has gifted us, our talents, treasures, strength, friends, etc. All that we have has come to us from God, and everything must be used to glorify God. In the second reading, taken from the letter to the Hebrews, the author elaborates on the significance of Jesus as a high priest like Melchizedek. The priests of the order of Aaron lived and died, necessitating their frequent replacement. Thus there were, over time, many priests and high priests. The salvation offered by Jesus, however, is eternal, because his intercession on our behalf will never cease. This is one of the ways that Jesus the high priest is superior to Aaron the high priest. The adjectives holy, blameless, and undefiled provide further contrast between Jesus and the earthly high priest. Jesus is the sinless one, and having no beginning and no ending is eternal. We also see a contrast between the once-for-all nature of Christ's sacrifice and the perpetually repeated sacrifices offered by the earthly priests. Jesus' death on the cross was a once-for-all time sacrifice that needs no repetition, and since he is no longer being subject to death, there is no need for high priests to replace Jesus when he dies. In the Gospel taken from Mark, we see Jesus facing a tricky question. The previous encounters with Jesus in his temple teaching have left the religious leaders, Pharisees, Sadducees, and Herodians, at a loss to entrap Jesus. The question of the scribe concerning the first commandment leads to Jesus' reciting of the Shema, the prayer that is central to Jewish identity. He combines Deuteronomy 6 which speaks about loving God, with Leviticus 19:18, which speaks about loving one's neighbor. Jewish law includes 613 commandments. Scribes examined each law in minute detail and devised complex rules to help people understand how to obey each law in every conceivable situation. The problem which arose because of this extensive system of laws was that the main intent of the law was forgotten. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 5 speaks of loving God with one's heart, soul, and might. Jesus adds loving God with one's mind. To love God with heart, soul, mind, and strength is to love God with all that we are. The Greek word used for love is agape. Agape love is more a doing than a feeling word, although it involves both. Agape requires action, requires us to demonstrate our love in some practical fashion. For example, a God-loving musician might serve using his or her musical talents. Loving God and loving our neighbor with a whole heart is more than just having positive emotions about them. To love God with your whole heart means to love God with everything you've got. The first letter of John beautifully mentions that those who say, "I love God," and hate their brothers or sisters are liars. For those who do not love a brother or sister whom they have seen cannot love God whom they have not seen. Loving the people around us is nothing but an expression of our love for God. And our failure to love the people around us is a sign of our failure to love God. The heart is at the core of our being. The readings challenge us to internalize the commandments so that our compliance springs from the heart rather than from legal obligation. It is a requirement to keep the commandments originally inscribed on tablets of stone, inscribed on our hearts. At the end of the Gospel, we read that no one dared to ask him any question. And truly speaking, there are no questions to ask Jesus, but only questions to ask ourselves. Questions about our love for and commitment to others. Questions about how much we are willing to give and how much we are willing to hold back. I pray that each one of us may be able to experience that silence which arises when there is nothing more to ask. Take a moment to feel that silence. Listen to what the silence is asking of you. May God bless us all.